Obviously, there's more things that we can do with this concept of inheritance here, right? Because the idea is to inherit from your parents. But as you know, when people say that you, for instance, have inherited your mom's nose or your dad's eyes, that does not entitle you. That does not mean that you are your parents. Right? We are our own individuals. We have our own traits, even though we have inherited all of the main traits from our ancestors, from our parents. Okay, the same idea comes here is that if we talk about basketball, for instance, okay, as we have here, basketball is just empty. The class itself is very empty. There's nothing in it. But how do we make this basketball unique? Right? Because a basketball, for instance, may have different behaviors, even different properties as well, in addition to what we already have from our ball, from our parent class. Okay, so in order for us to differentiate the classes that we are using as children, the children classes from the parents, okay, remember, we're still getting everything from mom and dad, but we want to differentiate ourselves, right? Because we are our own individuals, and that's very possible. The way you do that, you can go back here, because remember, this is just a class, just like any other class, except it extends or inherits from ball, which means we can even put our own properties here. We can, for instance, have a property here, a few properties. Let's say we want to put a Boolean property here, public Boolean, and we're going to name this is NBA. Well, so this property is going to hold whether this is going to be an NBA old ball or any other kind of basketball. Okay, just as an example, we can have another one here, say int capacity. Okay, something like that. And of course, we can also go ahead and have here some behaviors. All right, we can go ahead and say, for instance, public Boolean is NBA. So this one here will return true. Let's just give like that for now. Okay. And another behavior we can add here, since we know this is a basketball, it still extends ball because it's a type of a ball. We can go ahead and look at other things, other behaviors that the parent ball has. For instance, bounce. Okay, what we can do, we can also do what they call override. When we override certain behaviors, what are we saying? We're saying that, okay, I do understand that me, as a basketball, I'm bound to ball my parent, which means I have all the properties and behaviors of my parents. However, me being a basketball, not just a general ball, I can have my own behaviors. So if I say public void, let's see what bounce, for instance. Bounce like that. Now what I'm saying implicitly, I'm saying, well, when we create our basketball in our main here, this basketball object here, okay, when I call the method bounce, it's not going to go and call this method here. It will have to call this one here because we are overriding. In fact, if you hover over here, it says here overrides method in ball. All right. That's the beauty, because now we are customizing our basketball here. All right. It's very powerful. So now we can go ahead and say system out print ln like that, and we can say basketball bouncing like that. Okay. And to make it a little bit more fun, we can say NBA is equal to true, else return false, something like that. So let's save this. Now, if we go back to main here, okay, we have already instantiated this basketball object here, so we can use it. Let's go here. Okay, so now if I go ahead and say if I wanted to show, just to show you real quick here, what's going to happen, if I go back here, we know that our bounce, we have overridden it now. So let's see what bounce it's going to be called. If I say here, basketball that bounce, if I save this, let's run. It says basketball bouncing. Let's go ahead and run again just to make sure we are clean here. We don't have a lot of code showing. Say basketball bouncing, right? Why? Well, because it has another bounce here in our parent, but since we have said, you know what, we don't want to just bounce like our parent. I'm a basketball, not just a ball. I want my own bouncing here. Okay, so now we are customizing our basketball, even though it has all of the properties and methods or behaviors from our parents. Okay, so going back here, we did add another behavior, which is NBA, and we have the capacity here, which we're not touching at all. Okay, but let's take a look at this property here. So it's a boolean is NBA. Now this means that we have to add something to this boolean. So now if we go back to main here and we set, say, actually let's set up here basketball. Let's set out, let's say basketball that is basketball. There we go. That is NBA. Let's set it to true. Okay. And now here, let's go ahead and call the basketball that is NBA, the method boolean, and see what's gonna return. It's got one error found. Oh, there we go. We need semicolon there. Save and run. Okay, so now, as we can see here, it says basketball bounce, and then it just doesn't show anything. Well, why do you think that is? Well, it's returning what we needed to return, either true or false. The problem is that we need to actually show what is being returned, because now we're just returning something here, but we're not catching it and showing it. So what we can do, of course, easily, we can just go back here and put inside of a system that out here and say basketball that is NBA, and say dot is NBA like that. Save and run, and you see says true. And of course we can keep doing this. We have this capacity here, which is an integer. We can go back here and we can add, say, basketball that capacity is an integer. Let's say 23, just like that. Okay, that means here we can go ahead and say plus capacity and say base basketball that capacity, right? Because we've set here 23 and we should see true and 23. So run this. There we go. Basketball bouncing, true, capacity 23. Very, very nice. Very, very nice indeed. So with this small example here, we are digging deeper and deeper into this inheritance and how to manipulate and how to create classes that can inherit from a parent class, okay? But they can also be their own identity, right? You can keep adding things to our basketball here. As you can see, we added this boolean property, okay? And we added this capacity. We even added our own behaviors, right? This boolean is NBA here, which if it's true, returns true. If it's otherwise, just returns false. Okay, and we also learn how to override certain behaviors that we inherited from our parents. So think of this idea of overriding also. It's like if your parents had had certain traits or certain behaviors in this case that weren't necessarily the best behaviors, like if they were very loud when they spoke. Okay, just as an example, you can override that, which means you can say, you know what, I'm not going to be like my parents, so I'm not going to be as loud as they are when they talk to people. Okay, so in this case, it would be in your speaking volume method per se, you would override it to be silence or lower volume, something like that. that makes any sense. A very trivial example, but nonetheless, I hope that kind of gives you an idea of what inheritance, of what overriding means here. All right. And of course, we did create the baseball here. So what I want you to do with the baseball, I want you to do the same thing we did with the basketball. Same thing, really, because you can here inside, you can go ahead and create your own properties, new properties. And remember, these properties will be in addition to what our ball main class or our ball parent class already has, right? Create your properties and your own behaviors. I mean, these behaviors could be overridden behaviors. So you can override, right, behaviors from ball, our parent class, or just new behaviors, new ones. Okay, and once you do that, go back again and to our main class, instantiate, in this case will be a baseball, instantiate a new baseball object and add a few properties there and go ahead and display them just like what we did here. Okay, perfect. I'll see you in the next video.